I'll let you take it away, sir.
Sounds fantastic.
Thanks for being here, John.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, how's everybody doing today? Good deal. Good deal. Obviously, the first thing that strikes people when they look at this dummy is the shape of the nose. No, I'm joking. It's a post. Everybody sees that thing, they're kind of like, what the heck is this for? And so when I talk about it, okay, the post is for, let's play T-ball off of it. Everything. There's all kinds of things people look at. That just doesn't look right. There's no steers with 3 horns. Why would I want to rope that? The truth of the matter is that all the dummies on the market today, all of them, every one of them, you can come around with a great loop and everything look great, but if you come across flat, that would go on any other dummy. And you do it 50 times in a row, and then you go out and you throw the same loop on a live cow when it doesn't work. You want me to smile for one? But anyways, seriously, it doesn't work. And so what inspired this, I'd like to talk about the birth of this dummy first, because really you have to understand, I don't come from a world of elites. I don't come bearing natural talent and just naturally gifted, and then I'm sharing my natural gifts with you. You have to understand, I come from the other end of the world, okay? I come from a guy who is challenged, who progressed rapidly at first, then plateaued, and then the inconsistencies in my roping are what drove me to design something that would change those loops. And so, being in the video and photography industry, I had an edge on other people. It wasn't just watching somebody rope. What they're doing now in TotalTeamRoping.com, which is a great link. Seriously, if you guys get a chance, get on there, and they're taking high-speed footage, and they're taking 2 seconds, and they're slowing it down over 15. And you can really watch what the hand does. You can watch as the pinky opens up and how they're setting their loops down, when they rotate, when things are happening. But 10 years ago, I sat in my house with a high-speed deck that I used, and I did just that. And just like this right now, everybody who's standing right here that can hear me, everybody look up. Look behind you up here. What do you see? You see that sign up there? How many of you sitting here looked at that sign when you walked in or even knew it was up there? You know what? None of us. But now that I've pointed it out, you know it's there, and you'll see it every time you walk in this room. Much like the big whitetail I shot at last year, I drew back, and when he ducked my arrow, he stopped for a second to say, see ya. He's never not walked in looking up in that dang tree. I've tried everything I can to get another shot at this guy, and I can't. But he's a tree-looking fool now. That deer never looked up in the tree before, but that day he did. And much like when I studied that video, I looked at all of the great talents out there, all of them. And they verbalize things differently. You know, and every guy's got his different way of describing something or verbalizing it to you. But what I did without even hearing anything is you look at these things, and pretty soon it was like, that's a common denominator. That is, that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy. No matter what they're teaching, those are common denominators that make them successful. They have talents. And there's a big classic banner. I don't know if they have one here at this show, but there's one over at the South Point where we're at as well. But it's got 2 different world-class headers in there on the same banner. And when you look at them, they look like they're clones, except their face and their patches on their shirts. No mystery to that, okay? So the loops that haunted me, and it seemed to haunt all of us, are splitting the horns, wave-offs, throwing it down the side of the right head when I do draw a good one. Would you all agree that those are pretty big misses in the head and world? And like the guy that bought a dummy the other day, he was 4th high callback roping over here at the South Point for big kind of money. And he waves it off, split the horns and waved it off. And his wife tells me, she goes, he's going to get a new dummy. He's going to change this, because this isn't the first time this has happened to us in the short go. But when does that inspiration for change typically come? For me, my wife and I both rope. If my wife's watching today, hi Montana, hi Dakota, hi my daughter John, I love you. But honestly, you dump out a bunch of money and you're leaving that rope and just firing mad at yourself, doing a 1-spur butt kicking contest, driving home. You're inspired. You're going to go home and you're going to rope your dummy 50 times a day. And you're going to go home and you're going to exercise your horse twice a day. You're going to go home and do some change in something. I'm going to get angle starts. I'm going to this, I'm going to that. You're going to do something kind of change. But if it's just more of the same of what you're doing, where does true change come from? The smallest changes sometimes can have the most dramatic effects. But the deal is, at those things you're doing are just reaffirming the things that are making you at the same level now. More of the same is not change. It's not change. So when we started studying the angles and the science and the physics behind this, like the two kids I was talking to over here, I don't know where they went, when we walked up, when they're reaching, they kept missing the right horn and pushing their loop forward. Missing the right horn and pushing their loop forward. Much like we've seen some of the pro loops here the last couple nights in team rope, we've seen some really tough loops. And 1 or 2 degrees at this, right here, 1 degree, 2 degrees here, has moved just a couple inches. But when I'm backing up, these guys going as fast as they're going, and they're delivering from back here, how much is 1 to 2 degrees? It's more than the size of the whole head. So if a guy's off 1 or 2 degrees in his delivery from back here, delivers just 1 or 2 degrees early, well, guess what? That went from covering both horns to covering that much of the horns. And how many loops have we seen come around that tip of the horn right here this week? A lot. And that's when the greatest are going as fast as they can, we see flaws. And that's where this dummy, even all the way up to the pro level, a guy that can sit here and 2 swing from 4 coils out and really do it fast and get it on there and not hit that post. And a lot of them, what they start doing, the high number of guys that were roping this, normal swings and power and everything, flawless. Never miss it. Never miss pull, never miss the horns. Never miss pull, never miss the horns. When they start pushing and trying to go fast, they start 10%, 20% of the time U-bolting right around this and catching the post and both horns. So needless to say, at every level, there's going to be something in this for you, okay? So the pole, when we came to this, what it started me thinking, we went different height, sizes, placements, all kinds of stuff, and I'm not going to go into all the science behind it, but I'll tell you this. If you're swinging, everything's a great loop, and you're up, and everything looks wonderful, and you deliver early, that's what you're going to get. Other than roping a dummy 50 times in a row, you would see that 50 times in a row, or you're going to change. So I don't want to deliver my loop early. I don't want to split the horns. I don't want to wave it off. The other thing it's going to stop you from doing, and guys that are hooked on roping wide horns, okay, I can take this post off here, and I could emulate a wide set of horns in an improper loop. I can get up here and I can get my rope going, get a bigger loop for bigger horns, and I can just go. And that right there would rope 6-foot set of horns. That loop right there, the second a steer does this, it's a miss. And when it comes around and hits the shoulder of our dummy, the way it's built, 30% of the time it's going to be a miss because it's going to wave off. So do I want to practice roping just big horns and do the same thing that I'm doing, just an exaggerated sense of that? No, that's not true change. So that flat loop that works some of the time, and for guys that are catching 6, 7, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, do you feel any different when that 10% miss shows up in the short go? Do you feel any less worse or more worse than the guy that maybe he misses 20% of them in the short go? If you're out, you're out. I don't know about you, but it's inspiring either way, okay? So the pole is going to make me let my loop tip get out front. Everybody talks about timing and healing. I like to talk about timing in the delivery. If I pick up a little kid and I'm looking at my steer, pick him by the hands and swing him, wherever I let go, that little kid's going to fly. Don't go home and try it with your kids, your grandkids. Don't do it, but trust me. It should just make common sense. And so when I'm swinging and my tip is out here in front, just like the little kid going around my body, wherever I let go, that loop is going to fly. But you notice when I let go here, it flew, and then it kicked and came back around, right? That's because once the slack between our hand is exhausted, it hits your spoke lets it kick right to left, and hence the rope kicks right to left. If you ever throw a Frisbee over a steer's head, it goes right around your horse. So hopefully we won't have to have the discussion of right to left or both horns because it's just physics, and you can throw your rope and miss the steer head, and it's going to come around. It's just the physics of swinging a circle and let go of your loop. So, needs to say I want to practice timing, get my loop tip all the way around. So when I say there, I'm completely over those horns and down. And I'm not walking up pop shotting from here. I can take this dummy, pony dummy out I want, and I can let it sit right here and just weld it on, and weld it on, and weld it on. But the window that we've designed in our dummy, when I sit back here, and I'm right here and I look at the base of that horn, that's a small little opening between that shoulder and the horn. That is not realistic per se. The shape of the shoulder is, the head being out flat's realistic, right? When I condense this, I've got myself a small sight window. Now I want you guys that are standing down low, you're going to see it too much, so stand up. The guys up there, you're going to have to take a little into this, but watch the base of that right horn as I turn this around and see that over the shoulder to the base of the right horn, how much space we have. Okay? All right? See what I'm talking about? It's not sitting up there like this. You take a dummy and you bring its head up like that, everybody wants to rope that cow. I want them. You give me that steer in a short go, and I can just about throw a whopper, and I'm going to get it on there. The steers that we typically see run with their head up like that are fresh cows turned in the arena the first time. They're like, where's the gate? Where's the gate? And they're usually trotting, where's the gate? When they learn where the gate is, how do they run to the gate? With their head up, head down. They're flying usually. They're going to the gate. They're going to the gate. So that head angle is realistic from what we're going to experience off horseback. Again, I believe that everything I do right here, and then just putting my rope down and mastering position and certain skills on my horse, separating those two things is much more effective than trying to learn them from horseback all the time. You marry those two things together and you always want to swing and deliver, you're erasing some of your good you're developing elsewhere. So when I master these things on the ground, and they're the same things that are going to put together on my horse, when I get on my horse and I master horsemanship and position and everything else, when I marry those together, it's a beautiful thing. When I don't, it's kind of like the first year of a young couple's marriage. It's a little rough. First couple years. You might even get divorced first 5 years roping and just quit. I know some weeks I quit every week. Okay? So the base of the horn is going to make us have drop and get our tip down, something that a lot of guys have never done or known to do. Now, it doesn't mean we're going to swing up here like this and come down. I understand that we can play pig, we can throw in realistic loops, we can try to cheat it. I can walk up here with a goat rope, and I can sit down like this and come around here and just go. That is not what we're here to practice. And when I let my kids and other people rope this thing, first thing I tell the parents, let them play, let them have fun, because it is fun to rope and spin and heel, and the legs are collapsing, we can jerk it back. We have a great time just jackpotting and roping with this thing. But the deal is, they should have a schedule set, loop size, everything else, and when they line up to rope it, things should be realistic. Rope like you mean it. Should be full size. So when they come down and do these things, the whole loop should be the challenge as well. This loop going in here on a sawhorse is easy to do. Getting it past that plastic and that angle and getting it to go in there is not so easy to do. Okay, so back to the head. So the post is going to make us not throw flat loops, not deliver early loops, not jam loops, and keep our hand down to the center of the head before we roll our hand over. And if you think about this, you try to take a round trash can lid and go put it on. If you just go like this, you're never going to get the lid on the trash can. Go to the trash can and go like this, you're not going to get it on the trash can. If I take the right edge of that trash can lid and I find the trash can and I push it down, it's on the trash can. Much like a head loop. If I simply get it around the base of the right horn and I'm swinging a circle and my loop is stood up and being pushed from the bottom strand, I'm going to catch them. And wider horns, if a guy wants to see how big he has to make his loop, extend your right horn only out, because that's all that matters. You get out around this loop, no matter how far you come from, it's going to go with the left horn. Okay? The other thing it's going to do is make sure you're built up right. If you got too much rope, everything's great, your delivery's great, but your loop opens up past the shoulders, hits them in the back of the head. What kind of loop do we have there? A lot of people say, I want the Hondu to hit him in the base of the left horn. I don't. When my Hondu actually hits him in the back of the head, this is what I got. What I want is I want this to open up, and watch the calf roping slow-mo. It's always great to watch, because those guys, they got a rope in the middle where it goes down to the base of the head, and man, they've pulled off some shots with some loops this week that are amazing. But those guys that are roping at that level, they're amazing. When my loop opens up and I've got the center of my loop and I'm catching my steer here, doesn't it make sense that this part of my loop's got more opening than this part or this part? So when this opens up like this, comes across the centrifugal force and curls over here, when we pull the slack, then the Hondu slides down to the base of the left horn. So if my loop is so built up that I keep roping around the front of this post, that tells me my slack is too long, my spoke's too long, it's flying too far before it opens up. Again, I want my head in the center of my loop. That's why some people, and what I used to do, is I used to rope a big barrel to help me with that concept, to make sure I rope the barrel, because I hit a barrel, and I loop past it, go off the top of the barrel. It's much like our calf head. You rope in the center of the loop, or it'll skip off the back of that neck, and it'll hit the dirt. You will not rope it, period. You rope in the center of your loop, or you're not going to rope it, okay? So those are the things that the head does for you. Now, the other thing that the post does, it gives me a visual reference. Now, what I want to do is I need 3 guys real quick that head, just to come up here and stand for a second. 3 guys. I'm not going to ask you to do anything. I just need you to walk up here and stand in position. We're just going to mark a couple spots so you can go sit back down. You ready? Come on up. It's real simple. I just want you to walk up over there and stand and tell me where you head from. Okay? All right, good. Next. Anybody else? Headers? Just anybody. Anybody that throws head loop. I know you're all ropers. You wouldn't be sitting here. You want to come on up? You can go ahead and have a seat, sir. Okay, right there. Good, and I need one more. Just someone else come up. Why don't you come up and, anybody, jump up here. You want to come up and see where I used to rope from? I used to rope from right here. Okay? This was it. It's my sweet shot. Where I want to rope from now is right over here. The reason I want to rope from here, and he is in a more correct position than you're in a correct position, and the reason I want this is for a multitude of reasons. The first I'm going to talk about this 45-degree line that we're going to rope from, okay? When we turn around, we rope from here, horse position, horse calmness, loop, coverage, everything's benefited. And I'm going to start with the position. 45 degrees off the base of the right horn. We're out here wide. First thing is going to be this. Let's just talk about the physics and why this is better than not. Can you come up here and help me with this real quick? I hate for you to make you put that drink down, but I need a hand on this. I want you to come back in here and hold that rope right where you like to rope from, okay? When this hits, whip, and then start stepping left. See the deadness in the rope? Now the rope's tight again. When we hit this steer in narrow, good, come on back. When we hit this steer narrow, there is not going to be a tight rope the entire time. When you take away the forward momentum and the weight of the steer's feet coming out and you give him any kind of slack in his rope, what does back feet do? Have you ever watched it? We in our clinics, we actually slow-mo footage and study nothing but the back feet of a cow. Because when you can see that as a header and you can control what you're giving your heeler and you see it for the first time like that sign, you will never forget it again. It's a done deal. Now step out wide. Okay? Same steer. Where did that steer go? Wow, and the rope is tight the whole time. So she's out there at an angle from this. What else is this going to create in her horse? How easy is it going to be for this horse from over here to face from here to here and keep the rope tight? If you're in here and you're dragging this cow from here and you're rounding around the front of the cow, what usually happens with that slack in the head rope? What does it do to trying to get a heel rope tight? Adios, there goes a foot. Okay, thank you very much. So, one more analogy that deals with my kids, because I love my kids and I love to spend time with them, and one of the funnest things they like to do, and it's tough for me to even drive out the driveway when they're screaming again, 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 is swinging them. Got a 4-year-old and a 2.5-year-old, and so Dad's got to get out there, and I sure don't pick them up in here narrow and drop that swing. If I did, they wouldn't be asking again, again. Now my 4-year-old, if I took her past that 45 and dropped her, she would love it. My wife would shoot me. But the deal is, I bring him back to that 45, and when I let him go, what does the kid do? Do they drop? Do they lurch? Do they hit? Or is it not smooth as glass? Smooth as glass. Same thing. Steer's running, hits into your rope. You rope, you dally, you sit down, and you ride your horse. Check your horse up. Steer hits the end, his head comes. What then when his head bends, what goes out for our heeler? How easy is it to heel something when the feet are coming out to us versus going underneath us like this? Okay? So instantly, you've got a whole new group of high-numbered heelers that want to rope behind you. Why? Because that forward header that can set the steer out wide, they are a hot commodity in today's roping market, especially at the World Series. They want to be able to come compete for the money that all of us, the average guys, compete for every day. They don't get to normally. So, learning that handle is incredible. The other thing it does for our horse, if his job's easier, if it's simple, if he can learn to just leverage and use that weight, how's he going to act in the box? How many more steers am I going to be able to run on that horse? How much longer is his withers and his hocks going to last me? A lot longer. The other thing, horse control. I'm in here narrow and I rope, go up here and I pull my slack. Where's my left hand? Where are my shoulders? And I'm trying to, after I pull my slack and I'm trying to get to the horn, then I try to push him back in, or I'm going across the pin and I'm pulling back in his mouth. What part of a handle of a cow do we want to be pulling in our head horse's mouth had him gap on us as we're pulling him back here? None. And my wife, it's tough because her horse, the second he feels weight, wants to leave. So if she ever misses her dally and she's trying to get to the horn, ride close up, if she does that, he feels that tug and he wants to move again. And a good head horse will. And how hard is it to get a dally back at that point? So what we practice in our drills is pushing our head horse up to where I can get my hand back here before I try to re-dally. Because if I can ride, he doesn't have a chance to take the rope back out of my hands. So, horse calmness and control. My shoulders, I'm over here, I'm roping. Where's my left hand now? Want to arm wrestle? Want to go ahead and take it? Take the reins, want to arm wrestle? Want to stop my horse? Want to control him, make a wall so when I reach, I've got a wall for him to push against? You get a horse, a higher numbered horse that really drops and can move a cow out of a hole, and you give him that drop, that's like turning a motorcycle in a corner. You can't go back the other direction. You try to go ahead and turn a motorcycle, get going like this in a circle and try to turn right. You will wreck, and you'll never get a head horse back. So that wall you create, keeping him stood up, keeping his shoulder up, you can use bits and all other things. The bottom line is if you don't have the right position, the right leverage point, you're going to be challenged your whole entire roping career. You'll buy a new horse, eventually he'll do the same thing. You'll buy a new horse, eventually he'll do the same thing. You'll buy another horse, he'll do the same thing. Because everywhere you go, you are. And unless you start making changes in your physical makeup, how you rope, where you position, what you're doing with your hands and your body, it's not going to transfer lifelong. How many guys got a horse, blow it up, and buy another one? I can't afford to. They're way too pricey. Okay? So, when I practice this shot. I also practice coming over here narrow because somebody's going to run one at me and still make the same great delivery. The other thing I practice more than my free throw. How many times we see a cow that does that as a heeler gets high, gets in his eyes and starts bringing them to us? A lot. Flagman's right here. All my buddies are standing back here. We're just like squeaking around trying to get a head loop on and go across the pin. And about that time, the announcer's like, please get out of the arena. Give everybody a fair chance except for the last guy. Is that not the truth? I mean, it happens all the time. It's crazy. And I'm just like, well, what about me? I just ran on the flagman. Can I get another one? No, no time. The other shot, which is one of the toughest shots for me as a header, and everybody I've ever had try this challenge, it's the toughest shot for them too. It's amazing. Trying to reach over and get that right horn as a steer's ducking and going to a fence. If my heeler can't pinch him off the fence, can't get him off, and he's got to start swinging and he comes back in that cow, I've got to get a rope down between him and the fence, and the only thing I can do is widen myself out so my spoke kicks open. I've got a chance of the tip hooking that horn, and I can somehow at least get a half head, something. Most times, 99% of the time for me, it's a miss. It's a tough, tough steer. And I guarantee you, when I walk into an arena, I look at the strip and shoot. Everywhere I go, I look at the strip and shoot. It's right out there in the middle. If I get one that pinches him off, I've got a shot from there to there. I will keep my horse there, and I'll wear it out, and I'll wait until I know he has to come off the wall if he wants to go on that strip and shoot. And I'd much rather almost tear down the gate of a strip and shoot than hit the wall. And so I'm going to use him at the end of the arena. But I take those things into account before I go. Why? Because I'm not a superstar. I need every little bit of advantage I can give myself. I don't tell people I'm competing against, hey, you know, if you draw this steer right here, he's going to pinch you off. And if you wait till he gets off the wall, you probably get him caught. No, I'm just going to watch them suffer through what I know I don't want to. Okay, so I practice all those shots on the head side. So again, I go out, I want to react. I don't want to have to think. If I think, I miss. All right? So any questions on the head side before I move over to the heel side? Any questions? Anybody? Okay. The heel side of this dummy was the most difficult, time-consuming, and complexing to me to design. Physics, huge here, huge. Lots of debates on delivery and timing and angles and hand position and rolling the hand, dropping the loop, not dropping the loop. There's a lot of things out in our industry today that are very controversial about this. And it's not so much that it's controversial as if the bottom strand's on the ground, you rope 2 feet and you rope 2 feet. If you roped him, you roped him. And you can look back at 10 years of NFR footage, all 10 rounds, every single superstar's loop. And one thing they have in common when you look at that is that the bottom strand's on the ground. Hence, let's go ahead and let's all agree that obviously we have to have the rope under the steer's back feet for him to go over the loop. So, when I worked on this, one of the things that I had challenges with when I watched my workout on a sawhorse, which I love roping a sawhorse, is that I would get up here and I'd start my loop, and I'm standing behind it. I'd start from back here, I'd swing up here, get up close, and I'd go like this. And I'd rope it, sweep it. It looked good. Problem with that being is, where are my shoulders? Do I want to heel like this? Do I want to come down and go and lean back and stall out and not let my rope go in there? So then I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to try this theory of swinging over the back a bunch and trying to just put my tip in there and set it down. I can sure enough do it. Once again, I lean outside and I get my loop up. And I'm coming over the top, get up here flat. I'm going to get over the back, and I'm going to try to go. I'm going to put my trap in there. Well, the bottom line is, you can sure enough get your tip and you can rope some of these, but when my hand is way out here, do you notice where the Hondu slid on that rope? All the way down. How many guys do you say, man, I had 3 foot sticking out the left side, and the second I pulled my slack, it came out? Well, when that Hondu's behind that leg right there, Where's it going to go every time? So we'll hear, I hope I didn't hit anybody over there. Probably got close, sorry about that. But it literally, it's going to pop out. And so what looks like to be a good loop, it's never going to have the bottom strand down. And that right foot will just kick right under it, and you're going to pull with the Honda inside the right leg, and you hear zzz, 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 like it's coming tight, and then the healer just watches it go over like, wow, how'd that come out? And so reaching out and not using my rope, not putting everything on the ground, was leaving that right leg out all the time. And as I watched myself on video, and I was like, yeah, that's not the same common denominator that this pro, that pro, that pro, that pro, and that pro, that pro possess. It wasn't. I wasn't doing those same things. And so in this dummy, what we wanted to do is create a window that a guy had to get all the way through, had to get his tip through, or he wouldn't get it in. And so when he comes in here and he's swinging hard and powerful, he's got good angle, when he reaches forward, if his tip's hitting the side of his body, he's not going to get it in. And on any other dummy that's just a suspensory dummy, my sawhorse, whatever, I had a yellow fold-up metal thing, whatever they are, if I can just sit there and get my tip and break it early, just 1 or 2 degrees, that loop on live cattle, when you're at this angle, will catch dirt. And if you're catching dirt, you're taking momentum out of your loop. So in this window that we designed, and obviously when you look in there, it's cut back into it, and we had to cut back into it. And as I started cutting back into this thing, I started thinking, hey, this thing's starting to look pretty cool too. I started thinking my kids are going to think it's a sport motorcycle because it looks like a gas tank in a sport motorcycle. And I was like, kind of a cool look to this thing. That's pretty neat. So I started accepting the different look of my dummy. At first I was like, oh, ain't no steer's butt that goes like that. But the deal was I wasn't trying to recreate a life look a steer. I was trying to create a tool that made me rope correctly. So when I got to making sure I wasn't swinging flat up here, I developed this angle. Comes off the top of the leg, shoots out. What I did is I studied run after run after run after run of heelers coming at me. And when they pick up their rope and that steer's over there, the heeler doesn't swing like this. I mean, we do have some ranchy guys that do. We got some guys that swing like headers. But what do the good guys possess? Angle. And so now I've got an angle, a visual reference. I can reference and I can turn in. And I've got everything matched. I'm not having to manipulate and come down anymore like this. No heel delivery of a good guy, you'll see him swing, swing, and go like that. On a sawhorse, it's a horrible habit to develop. Okay? The other thing I did on my sawhorse when I tried some other instruction and tried to do something a little different is I tried roping behind it and stepping into it. So I took my sawhorse and I began to get a really steep angle, and I began to sit behind my sawhorse, and then I would step into it to rope it. Step on my right foot. I got pretty successful. I was roping it. Sweeps looked good. Traps looked good. I got on live cattle and I started watching myself, and I'm sitting there and you think about this. If a horse can feel a fly land on his butt, what made me think that I could shift 180 pounds in my right stirrup and him not feel it? So as I got up here coming around the corner, I looked at that steer and went like this and looked. Oh, it's done. Sideways, short, kicking him up, trying to retime. But it was funny. Whenever I shorted him and I kicked my horse back and chased him across the pen, steer wasn't next to me, wasn't high anymore. He was out here in front of me. When I come back there with him out in front, my loop was much more successful. So, started studying, go back to the book, looking at the pro's tip, how far it was. It was mysteries because their loop will come way over their back sometimes, almost up to the horns, shoulders when they're up high and tight. And they can come off and there's separation. So when they come down, the steer is right here. On a good position, the steer's not over here. We turn in early and we find ourselves roping like this. Not only is it a super hard shot to pull off, 2, you've got a ton of rope sitting over here and you're back like this with your dally. If I'm back like this trying to hold it come tight, when I put this 2 or 3 foot of rope back in my loop to dally, come down to dally, what makes me surprised when he goes, plucks a foot? I just put 2 or 3 foot of rope back into my loop. I just gave him 2 or 3 foot basically. When I stay with the cow out front and there's separation, and we come across here, think of this, I'm out front, the cow's out front. When I deliver their separation and I come up, it's almost like the Karate Kid. I mean, literally, you're just coming right here, and where's your saddle horn? Makes sense. That's why most calf ropers go here to here with the piggin string. I'm just here and here. If I'm from back here, I put rope back in my loop to dally up front, it'll never be as fast nor as consistent. So, the window on this thing was really, really important, and it just looked funky, but it's very, very functional. I got to get this twist out of this rope. The back legs, we wanted them to be a challenge. We tried different lengths, different heights, and at 2 inches, it was plenty of challenge without making it miserably hard. Okay? We didn't want to bring this up off the ground 6, 7 inches like this, make it too easy for you. We wanted you to make sure you had to stay down and you're delivering at the bottom strand coming through. And so what I did to work on my body position and everything else, I wanted legs that I could aim at, swing at, and every one of my swings I could come off and deliver and not have to change a single thing. So this angle right here is cut out so I don't have a 90 degrees, hence I can aim right at my target. So what I do for practice on the heel side, I take a bucket and I set it up here and I start out and I'm like, well, if I was a car, I want to park here. I need my steer here. I need to be clear over here. I'm putting a bucket so I have something to ride up around so I don't start short in the corner. And it just dawned on me, like many of my analogies, they just dawned on me. I was like, hey, this is like parking a car at the grocery store. I got to take my F-350 and I can't roll up the middle of the aisle and pull in left. I got to get over here and about clipping tail lights so I have any chance of turning in and getting that parking spot. But when I'm in the parking spot, I've got a little clearance, and everything's all good. So with that bucket up here, I wish I had something to set there today, and I don't. I get up flat, bring it back, get my angle, make sure I get my angle I want. Then I half step in so I can keep my shoulder back and never uncock. And I turn in, then I change the plane. And from here, all I should have to do to make my loop reach is what? Rotate forward, put my bottom strand on the ground. Nothing else. If we ride perfect position and we get our tip in first, all we got to do is just literally reach down and get our slack and weight him out. That's it. You lean over like this, you're holding your loop up like this, you check your shoulders because you're high, you lose all that rope and all that power. And by stepping forward and back and stepping on my right foot, I talked about, I didn't finish it earlier, when I was roping behind the thing and stepping into it, that shutting my horse down was huge. I stepped every time I went to deliver, I stepped. But when you step before you're really there and you look, it's shut me down. So I kind of half step, and it's weird, may look weird, whatever, but for me, where do my hips stay? Just like I'm riding a horse. In fact, somebody jump up here real quick. You can jump here real fast for me real quick. I just need you to stand up. I need you to take a step forward with your left foot, put your shoulder against mine, and push. What foot are you pushing on? Right. Okay, why is it so hard to rope without a right stirrup? You blow your right stirrup, how successful are we? So anybody that tries to tell me that they don't use their right foot and they don't step off their right foot, I'm going to take off the right stirrup, make them go match me, and I'll take their money. It's just fact. So if we're stepping, walking, and every time we go to the dummy, we walk, we're uncoiling the spring. And when you study golf, like I studied golf, because I was about as anal as golf as I'm about roping, Tiger Woods, I remember they did these high-speed photographs of him when he was early on. How does the guy hit a drive so far? You know what they learned? The amount of weight that he puts inside of his right foot and the amount of pressure that he puts into his hips and his back and the power he holds there, when he shifts his hips, he creates all the power from right here in his torso. Not up here, not here. He creates that power here in his torso. And it makes sense. On a horseback, do we ever lean on the left side of our swell with our hip pocket right here? I got 3 cell phones in the last 2 years that are the shape of my swell to prove the point. When we stand up and rope, we're pushing here. We got our weight here, but our power foot is our right foot. Hence, when you see a heeler deliver, if you could see his left foot, he would be here. His right foot sometimes almost looks like the tiptoes point at the ground because he's pushed and he's twisted his hips. And pushing his hips, the stirrup swings for a reason. And he's pushing, but his foot's back here. A good heeler will lean from here, not here. You watch a great heeler's body position, and they look like they got a stick taped to them. Because that heeler is up straight, and he's riding his horse, steers over here, and then he just delivers. He never goes. Now, mind you, unless he's heading behind a number 4 who was high, whipped him out, and the steer went under his horse's neck, he's got to pull off a shot. Or get one jerked away from us. We saw one last night, got jerked out in front of a heeler. I still don't know how Cleo does it. That steer had to be from me to there. The only thing I thought about when I reached out there and roped him was I hope he has enough rope to dally on. I mean, it was a shot. I was like, wow. But even when you're going fast, you have those critical things happen, much like we see every day in a number 10 roping. You know what I mean? They're not as often. So, the other thing about the legs is when you're ready to go home, I open this up, I put one rope there, put one rope here, my dummy rope stay on my dummy, the post comes out, the head comes out, everything goes inside. I designed this where I can open my tailgate underneath my gooseneck, slide it in the bed of my truck, close my tailgate, and it just rides back there happy as could be. It goes everywhere with me. I live and die on my own dummy. I start roping the outside leg, dropping it early. You can be sure you will see me wearing out my heel dummy, wearing it out. My wife starts splitting horns. She gets up here and she just starts saying there, whoosh, and welding it on. She gets out there and splits one. She doesn't wait to go back and fix it. She doesn't have to have a middle of just clear air somehow. What's wrong? Where is it? What am I doing wrong? Can't see it, can't feel it. This dummy will help you self-analyze yourself. You're out there by yourself. You don't have to have your buddy there. If it goes around the front of the pole, you know you were flat and your loop is too big. You jam it on the back, you know that you're swinging like the shape of a NASCAR track because you're too narrow, and you're pushing it right at the back of the head because that pole will stop you from doing it. Heel side, when you hear the great sound of, you know that you just delivered early or forward and your tip wasn't the leading thing. And on that, let me explain something to you. I challenge you to do this next time you eat dinner at a restaurant. Not that anybody here in Vegas would eat out. We're all going to eat out by the end of the day. This is science. How many strands of rope are on my right side? How many on the left side? There's naturally more weight in our swing on the back end of our loop. So it creates an imbalance from the get-go. When you take a steak knife and you got your edge of your table, push the handle this way, push the blade out this way with your handle, it'll go all the way to the handle, the blade will be sticking out here just like this and it'll sit just fine. There's more weight behind the tip. The tip doesn't naturally fall off. You switch that steak knife around and push the handle out, about halfway across, it's going to tip off the table. So if they would allow us to in competition to turn around and put a big old chain link or something out here, it would create more weight here, and hence I wouldn't even have to hardly be in time with my delivery because the weight's going to pull it around for me because there's now more weight here than there is back here. So it just tells you how important it is to make sure that that 1 or 2 degrees is there and the loop momentum and centrifugal force is here. Again, and I'll say this, you can't see centrifugal force, you have to be able to feel it. And what I do with the beginner is I take their rope and I make them reach way out and I make them stop and bring it way back. When that loop starts flying like this, nice and flat instead of this, like that, I ask them to speed it up. We play Simon Says. Simon Says, go fast. Simon Says, create power. And you'll watch a great healer. He will store that power up. He can change their timing, change, half swing, float for a second, and still have power because they never lose the tip of their rope. And so that's a challenging thing to do. The other thing we wanted in our dummy was to be for the whole family. Head, heel, breakaway. If enough people ask me, I'll make a goat head. In our calf dummy design, and again, I love the NFR because it shows us everything in slow motion when people make mistakes. I stand back here, I can't even see the back of the head. Okay? Everybody look at the back of the head from where you're sitting. Can you see it? Pretty much goes. So if I'm going to reach down and rope this calf, do I need my tip down? Okay. Obviously. I get down here to rope this calf, and I'm up here, go across even slightly flat, it's not going to catch him. If my loop is too built up, too big, it's going to open up late. How many calves, we can't talk about the pros, there's been 3 or 4 calf loops that are just so amazing this week. I just love watching calf roping. I wish I could get off, run that fast, my hands move like that, because that's about as far as my calf roping goes is the loop. But when we watch these things get small and they still catch that calf, that's perfection. That's a great loop, and they hold their slack. They can almost fish with their slack. It's crazy to watch. I get down here like this. I want this loop to open up to where the head's in the middle. We want the Hondu back here. I don't want the Hondu all the way up here. If my Hondu opens up towards the back of the head, I'm going to let it just fly further, shorter spoke, let it go out further. Opens up towards the back of the head. Well, geez, my Hondu is just right here. How bad is that? Well, it's a lot worse than being back here at the shoulder where the calf is in the middle of my loop. So for the calf head, by far it's the best one out there. We didn't want a hay bale effect where the hay bale grab your loop and work it, carpet foam or anything else. We wanted something that would challenge the loop. If it wasn't right, make it disappear. Okay? So if you're looking for something for the whole family, obviously our dummy is the fix. All right, at this point what I want to do is I want to bring up a couple people and want them to just rope it for a second. Got any volunteers? We got about 7 minutes, and I'd love to see a couple of you throw a few loops. Anybody over here? Header? If you want to throw a couple head loops? Where's some of our volunteers over here? Where's our kids? They're never shy. Come on. Yeah, we're going to be challenged. We can ride this thing and pull them around, and they're going to have a blast. Any volunteers, just throw a couple head loops for me. Sir? You? Come on up. What do you do, head or heel? You heel? And what's your name? Lewis? That's the sharpest hat in the place. Love that hat. It's going to be tough to catch those feet, Lewis. And now he's heeling. Okay. Go through another loop. You're going to heel, you're going to head. He just said he's a healer and he's roping bones. I don't know. Some of us are confused. Here, I'm going to turn you towards the camera here. So everybody who's watching from home can check this out. Come on around and... Sure. We're in the spotlight now. Good loop. You know one thing that's really cool about a healer when he gets to the head side? If he can find the right spot to stand and get the right plane to his loop, what does a healer have to know about his loop to rope effectively? Tip control. A healer's got tip control. A guy who's even a moderately good healer will make a good header. He should be able to rope horns easily because his tip's out front and he releases and it's beautiful. That's a good loop. Everything looked really, really good. Were you surprised that it went over there so easy? You wouldn't think it would you? When you throw a good loop, your hand actually emulates, your loop actually emulates your hand. That's why I'm watching a pro guy head and he's way out there, you'll see a roll of the wrist, you see a flash of the palm. Guess what? If you drew 3-foot fingertips off that guy's hand, it'd be the exact same shape as his loop. Doing the same thing his loop's doing, just like a trick roper. Okay, go ahead and throw a couple heel loops. Okay, go and throw another one. Do you remember us talking about that very loop earlier? The Hondu sliding down? Okay, do you remember what we talked about to do to not do that? If you don't stall your hand out here, come all the way down like you're going to give me a high five down here, all the way, rotate your shoulders down like that, it'll be gone. And that'll be a beautiful loop. Got great tip control, good angle. Make sure you flatten it out across legs like you're behind them. Big difference. Huge difference. And all it is, guys, that's a couple degrees. And what I do for practice for myself, because I will drop it outside, I sit back like this, and I think about my delivery and about the legs, and I look here, and I carry my hand to here. And I just master that motion with my shoulders, so I know that I'm not going to try to short my shoulders and not use my shoulders for delivery. I just rotate down and want to touch here. But I'm looking at the hock because that's my contact point. If I've got good centrifugal force and circle and it hits the hock at the right angle in the right spot, it's going to pull. The loop's like this, it's going to pull the bottom strand down to the ground. Just like the handle of a steak knife will pull the tip off the table. Same thing. Go through another one. We're going to wrap this up. World Series number 10 championship high callback team. Drop a little bit early, it doesn't look as good, okay? At least you didn't get high and hit the body at all. So something for you to work on would be get in and closer to where your tip is just behind the legs. Let's just do one more and then just extend. Yeah, so you can swing right at your target. So all you're going to have to do is rotate your shoulders and put it down. Same angles and everything. Try to stay on your left foot too. Remember, you're in your left lead on your horse. So scooch up there and keep your left foot forward. And remember, you're now over your steer, so get your plane going across the back. There you go. Which of those 3 loops, 4 loops you threw were the better one feeling to you? Last one. All you did is change a little bit of your shoulders, your distance, and you had about 6-8 inches more follow through. So again, small couple little changes, they're going to fix a lot of things. So, all right. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming up. Guys, we covered everything on the dummy, basically the outside edges of it. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to find us back here by the Shoot Help Shoot. And if you guys haven't checked out the Shoot Help Shoots, you need to check them out. Talk about an efficient practice when you can sit there and just score steers and they load themselves and load themselves and load themselves. It is an amazing piece of equipment. So thank you all very much for your time, and we'll be in our booth for any questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John McCarthy there with Rope Smart Steer. John, we appreciate you being here. I know you just mentioned it, but they've got a booth just back here across, I believe, from the Lou Casey booth. So if you have any questions, they've got some deals going on as well. As far as if you buy one, I think they're giving away an engraved knife, and they've got other stuff going on. So go back there and check their booth out. We appreciate it.